Give it a
Girl.
try.
Hey everybody, I'm Lisa West. I'm a dream doula.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jose Salazar, and I am the founder of High Performance Coaching and Consulting. Thank you for having me, Delisa.
Oh, it's so fun to talk to you, Jose. I know we talk once a week because we're in a mastermind group, which if you don't know what that is, hit me up later. We'll talk about mastermind groups. But today I would love to chat about coaching. And before we started recording, I was thinking, what are we going to talk about? Jose is such an interesting fellow. He's got a very interesting background, and now he's a coach. And tell us what you love most about coaching and the people that you love to coach the most.
Great. Well, thank you, Delisa. Yes. So, interesting that you said about a varied background. Yes. When you said, "Oh, what we can talk about," there was a plethora of things, but coaching is a great thing because that's what I'm doing now mostly. And more specifically, I could talk about life coaching. Another word that I use is transformational coaching.
Mm.
And well, coaching's, when people think about coaching, it's typically like, in sports is where you hear coaching most. And, what they do, a coach does is they help or they prepare players or athletes to perform, at a certain level, that they're whatever sport they're in. Well, similarly with a life coach is it helps people to be able to work their life better, to be able to perform better um, in their everyday life. And one of the things, the reason that I got into life coaching is because I really enjoy helping people, supporting people, and seeing people grow and be able to be a part of that to help them grow. So that's really one of the biggest satisfactions for me is to be able to help others because I've my whole life I've been helping others, supporting others. In the previous life, I worked in public safety as a paramedic and a firefighter, and I did that for close to 30 years. And that was great, but now I know that there's other ways that I can help people. So as a life coach, I continue to still be that public servant, and be able to see people in their time of need. It's just a little different because it's not an acute emergency, but still, there are some needs that people have.
Right. That's so cool. I mean, probably everybody who's listening to this might have seen a fire truck or a medic van go by, and maybe they never wondered about what it was like when you're inside that world. Recently, one of my friends, uh, he got divorced, and he said, I'm an artist, and my wife is dating a fireman. And I said, sorry, man, you're not going to win. The fireman is the guy that runs into the building when everybody else is running out. And the artists, well, I mean, I'm an artist too. So, but we laughed about that. Firemen
Sure.
always win because you're the hero. You're the guy that's saving people. And so now you can do that in a way that isn't urgent. Like you say,
Sure.
there's no big emergency, but you can help people have more beautiful lives. And I know that one of your passions is helping kids, like kids in school.
Yes. Yes. So one of the areas, so in coaching, so besides being a life coach and everything else, I've also been a sports coach with baseball. And I did basketball for a while, but baseball is more of my passion that I've worked in little leagues. I've coached for probably about six years. Coached my son through little league and stuff till we got more advanced level, and then turned them over to other folks. But yes, one of the biggest things that I really enjoy about coaching, like I said, was to see people grow. And when you're dealing with the youth, kids, and they're learning, it's such a good feeling to when you see when they first start how they're struggling and how they start learning skills. And a lot of the times people get in, or kids get into sports and parents put them into different sports so that they start learning things about life. And unfortunately,
Right.
that doesn't always happen, um, especially nowadays because sports has become such I guess, competitive that we lose the big picture of that when you're learning a sport and you're part of a team, you learn not only the sport and being part of that team, but also life lessons. And one of the biggest ones that you learn about is failure because there's a lot of failure in sports. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, sometimes we don't the way it gets approached, it's not the correct way on that, because failure should be seen as a learning opportunity, not as a, oh, you messed up and you need to do better and all that. Well, they need to do better, but we need to have a different way of approaching it. So with that in mind, having seen that and experienced that, I've expanded into the area of coaching and working with youth in the mental aspects of sports, because that's what I call, it's like the missing link for elite performance in sports. There's a lot of emphasis on the physical abilities, the nutrition, the workouts, and everything else, but it's the mind, it's the mental aspect, the mindset that's really going to make the difference. And nowadays, if you look at any of the big sports, whether it be baseball, football, basketball, they all have mental coaches or psychologists on their teams, and
Yeah.
because they realize that the importance. And if you read a lot of the success stories of different athletes, they will say that it was their mindset that got them through these things, not the skills,
Right.
everything else.
Right. I was reading the other day, and you probably know this since you're a baseball person, that the year Babe Ruth made his most home runs and hit the record for all time, right,
Right?
was also the year he had the most strikeouts.
Correct.
People don't
Absolutely.
talk about that, but
No,
he could have
no.
thought that was a failure. But instead, it's like a big statistic that everybody's so happy about.
Absolutely. And the reason that he, to use what you talked about, Babe Ruth, the reason that he was able to make so many home runs and get the record for home runs is because he wasn't afraid to swing, and he knew that when he was swinging, that he's going to miss, but he also knew that the more that he was swinging, the greater chance that he's going to hit the ball. And that's why sometimes we tell people that don't be afraid to swing. Yes, you're going to miss, but sometimes you're going to make contact. And it's funny, like you take, for example, baseball. So a great player is considered someone that has a hitting average of 300. What that means is that in 10 times, they hit the ball 3 times. And if you're doing that, you're pretty good. So that means you've messed
Wow.
up 7 times, but you're
Wow.
still
I didn't
considered
know
really
that.
good. Yes. And that's one of the things that happens, is that we're just so much focusing on, the things that go wrong, you
Hmm.
know, and instead of looking at the good things. So, you know, that's what I try to focus a lot on, this mental aspects, of sports, is the fact that it's not the what you're doing, but what you're doing to improve. One of the things that we talk about in coaching, life coaching, is not what you accomplish, but the person that you become in the process. And it's the same way. So if you can capitalize on the youth with sports to be able to understand the importance of who you become and becoming a better person, that's going to help them in their life, no matter what career they end up in.
Oh,
So
so beautiful. Yeah. And now I just think that if your program is focusing on youth in sports, it seems like there should be a division for the parents as well. Because I'm flicking back in when my kids were young and they played soccer, I didn't like to go to the games because of the parents yelling on the sidelines. It was so stressful for me.
yes, you're absolutely correct. I actually have the have an extensive program for kids, and I say kids, I mean they're teenagers going into college and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I also do have a program for parents and coaches, because coaches are the other ones that play a tremendous influence
Oh,
on
yeah.
success of a youth. They look up to them, they want to impress them, and all that. And it's the way that the coach handles this is how they're going to be remembered. So sometimes, because they get, especially at this young age, they get very competitive when you realize, what, this is only a little league game,
Yeah.
calm down, and it
Yeah.
happens in all the sports. And parents the same way. Parents, they mean well for their kids because they want them to do well, but sometimes we go about it the wrong way. I'm no exception. I remember back, when my son was small and stuff, how sometimes I just, get on him and stuff. And sometimes what happens, kids feel that they have to impress their parents or their coach. So
Yeah.
they do things not really what they want to do. instead of realizing that, whatever they do is good, and you want to support them and encourage them, and you don't want to talk about what they missed. They already know, if a kid strikes out, they don't need to be told, I can't believe he struck out.
No.
They know they struck out, or you have to do this, you have to do that. Let them go through it, let them process through it, and, move forward. But sometimes they're so afraid of striking out because of what their dad's going to say, you know. And when we put that in our mind of what we don't want to do, it ends up that's what ends up happening, because your mind starts thinking, okay, there's so much focus on not striking out that all the brain realizes strikeout, and that's why they
Sure, it's
strike out.
like, don't think about a pink elephant,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
And everybody who's listening, who's now thinking about a pink elephant.
Yes, that's the same thing. So yes, so that's
Oh,
so yeah, so parents play a big role, and even to this day, because my son plays travel ball, and I just sit in the stands and I watch, and I hear some of the parents, some of the things that they say that you just feel like you want to go over there and say, really, you're not helping and stuff.
yeah. I mean, I remember my kids had a couple different coaches when they were growing up, and one of them, they were all volunteer coaches. So,
Right.
bless their hearts for just volunteering to do this every
Sure.
Saturday and every Thursday night or whatever. One of them was just this yelling fiend. It was always yelling, run faster, go this, do that, blah, blah, blah. It was super stressful to just be around him. The other guy also yelled encouragements.
Right.
Way to go, Susie. Really good job on that. Way to be
Absolutely.
a sweeper. Way to make that goal or whatever he was saying.
Hmm.
I actually went up to him after one of the games and I said, thank you. Thank you for
Yep.
being such an encouraging person for these kids because I think that is a way to pull people up and allow them to be their very best selves
Right. Absolutely.
and and fail if they do, fail on the way to becoming great, right?
Sure. Yes. And it starts there, because when you're dealing with youth sports and they start that experience, it's the same thing happens when they go and get a job in the real life.
Hmm.
They start, how are they treated by their superiors? Do
Yeah.
we capitalize on, the good things, or do we just, emphasize on all the things that they need to improve on? And that's one of the things that is a big challenge, and that's where people have a lot of struggle with, because they're so used to hearing all the negative stuff that they don't really they make their lives in a fashion that they're trying to satisfy everyone, that it takes away from what they really want to do, and they hold back.
Yes, yes. I remember when I was in management way back in the day, I was told that if you're going to correct someone, you should give it to them in a poop sandwich. They actually used a different word, but uh, what you're doing great, the
Right.
poop, and then
Hmm.
what you're still doing great. It's like two great
Exactly.
things, and the thing they need to fix
Sure.
is way more palatable than constant criticism.
Right. No, that's absolutely true. As you know, I used to do a lot of training, in emergency services. And when you're training with skills and everything else, one of the things that people always, as soon as they're done with something, they're always like, how did it go? And the first thing that the student will always say, because they want to do it before the instructors, is they start saying everything they've done wrong. No, I messed this
Yeah,
up. I did this wrong.
yeah,
When I was teaching, we asked them, so how did it go? And when they started saying, well, I did this, I was like, I don't want to know that. So tell me the things that went well,
yes,
because you had to do something well. And then I would ask, what is something that you can improve on? Not that you did it wrong, or bad, but how can you improve it? Now, and it's all in the presentation of how you say things. So it's always been, you talk about the sandwich, what did you do well? What can you improve on? And then reemphasize, with the encouragement of continuing to improve.
yeah.
That's very important. But we're so used to finding out all the negatives. It's like, talk about what you did well. You know, and that's something that people have a very hard time doing. And every time they're like, you're asking them for something, feedback, they're like, well, I should have done this, or I could have done that. Okay, no, what did you do well first? And now let's talk about what can you improve on.
Well,
Just
there's
sets,
so many movies about the high school sports icon who missed the final, whatever, the goal in the last three
Right.
seconds of the game, and he
Mhm.
flubbed it up, and he's still sad about it 25 years later. I
Sure.
think that probably wasn't the only thing they ever did, but that's the thing that they're still upset about. So how
Right.
do you help a kid who's really like stuck in this negative zone of all the things they did bad? How do you help them see what they also are doing well?
Well, a lot of that, it's a process, especially when you're dealing with the teenagers and stuff. But they have to start realizing that while they did something that probably could have been done differently, they need to you start asking them, so what are some of the things that actually went well, or what got you to where you are now?
Mm,
And at some point got to realize is something, might not always go our way, but do you learn from that experience? And the key is, as frustrating, as upset as could be, as disappointing as, what can you learn from that? You know, and that's when you hear, because you hear a lot of the, real famous athletes and stuff when they had a setback is okay. So what can I learn from it for the next time?
right,
It's not an opportunity, and unfortunately sometimes, people say, well, I'm done. Well, it's not always, the best way. It's you got to realize we're going to fail. See, which brings up the interesting thing is that sometimes when you have, particularly, and well, since we're talking about sports, you have a youngster that's done really well and they keep doing well and they consider that they're really good. So, like, for example, they're great in high school ball and then they go to college. It's a whole different level.
right.
And
They're not like the
if
biggest
you're
fish
not
in the
used to
pond
it,
anymore. Yeah.
right, the first time they fail, it hits them really hard because you go
Mm-hmm.
from a big fish in a small pond to a small fish in a big ocean,
Yeah.
and that's why the failures that we have are important. So when you going back to your original question about how do you work with them, you explain to them, that it's part of the process, and you emphasize all the good things that they did to get to the point to where they are, and at some point, someone's going to win and someone's going to lose, but the fact that they were the last two there, or that they made it to the finals, that's a very big accomplishment, you know?
Yes.
So
Yes. And I love the idea that you would say to someone in all the trainings you would do, what did you do well? Or what I used to say, with just to random people, tell me
mhm,
something good.
correct.
Instead of
Yeah,
like, wah, 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 wah,
exactly. Do you
tell me
know that
something
it's much
good.
that people respond much quicker when they have to say something critical about themselves than when you ask them to say something good? They
Oh,
actually
people
have to
have, if
stop.
you say, tell me something good to a random friend,
Right.
they have to ponder it.
Absolutely.
They're not thinking what's good,
Hmm.
usually, unless something amazing just happened. They're thinking, I forgot to do this and I better do this and that thing didn't work out.
Right. Right. And
I
that's one
said,
of the things when I'm coaching people and we're talking about everyday things and they talk about things that they didn't get done. I ask, so what did you do this day?
yes,
What were you able to accomplish? That's why, and it's all of how people project themselves and how they feel about themselves. One of the things that, you've heard me when people ask, how are you doing? I always say, I'm doing great. And
yeah,
I have some people say, how can you say that? I'm doing great. No, I thought you're having a hard time with this. I said, well, I'm having a lot of challenges, but the fact that I woke up today, it's a win-win. It's a great day because there are people that didn't wake up this morning. So it's all a matter of perspective.
that is so perfect. When I was a brand new baby salesperson, I had a list that was an 8.5 by 11 page filled with words I could use when somebody said, how are you?
Right,
Fantastic, fabulous, amazing.
right,
The list went on. And so I would choose whatever word I wanted to use that day. And I
right,
remember a possible client called me up and he said, how are you today? And I said, I'm fantastic. And he said, really? I said, yes.
right.
Um, because, of course, the words we use are powerful.
They are.
Yeah. Well, thank you,
Absolutely.
Jose. It's been so much fun to chat with you. And
Oh, it's been
I
great.
will put in the show notes for everybody.
how they can find you if they're a parent, or if they're a student, or if they're an athlete, or if they even want to just chat with you about life itself. We'll put that in there.
Absolutely. Great. Well, thank you so much, Lisa. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, my pleasure.
All right. Have
Bye
a
for now,
great day.
everybody.